Oz Rodriguez is the director behind That Day of Michael Shea. I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby here with Oz. And I'd like to start by asking you what were the early discussions with Michael about developing the show?
Um, I think there were a lot of sort of tonal discussions as far as like what this should be, what it shouldn't be, and also like you know he worked at SNL. I used to work at SNL too. I did the digital shorts, and he we just wanted to do something that felt a little bit different than SNL, and a lot of the show was so personal to him, to Che. That's what that's why it has his name in the title. It's very much a show that reflects his experience and his point of view. Um, so yeah, I think it was sort of just general conversations, like not necessarily specifically about the sketches, because Shay's a pro at shooting the sketches, and we've worked together for a while. So it was sort of like the tone and the approach of it could be.
Well, from what I understand, you also filmed in November through February, where there were still a lot of the COVID protocols in place and very strict protocols. What kind of difficulties were you facing in that in terms of production and maybe having more limitations than usual?
Oh man, so many limitations. I mean, where to start? Let's just pick. Like, well, sketch show has usually a large juror cast, and that was tough with COVID because we have to test people, we have to test the crew, we have to test the cast. So even someone that came in and did one small part of a sketch had to sort of get into the cadence of the testing, and so it's a lot of people sort of this communal responsibility of like trying to stay safe and not bring the show down because we had a couple false scares and we had to take some time down. So it's super tricky, and the locations too have to be able to accommodate the COVID guidelines and necessities as far as space and ventilation, things like I've never really taken into account. Like, what's the ventilation of this set? But it gave us a few challenges. Well, not few, many challenges, and it was cool to sort of figure out this puzzle. Like, for example, I'm really proud of the work we did in episode 3, where we did this subway. We constructed a subway on set, and we used LED walls to make it feel like the real thing. And yeah, me and the DP Eric Bronco, the production designer Valeria De Felice, sort of the assignment was right a sketch written for a train, and just that we had to figure out how to do that. And it's in prime pandemic, it was not something that we could do in like the regular New York train. So yeah, there were so many challenges. And doing all the episodes, it was really just like a big old jigsaw puzzle to sort of figure out. But it was hella tough. It was so tough.
Well, because you also did have so many years on SNL as a director, how difficult was the process in terms of production on an SNL sketch versus a Michael Che sketch in terms of timing and, location and budget and all that?
I think there are definitely a lot of similarities because of timing. Uh, you know, the timing of SNL is there's nothing like it. It's just this Mad Max Fury Road, sort of trying to get to the finish line on Saturday. There's nothing like that. But I think in this, sometimes it felt like that because of other limitations like COVID and like just figuring out locations and locations falling because, sometimes these things happen, all these things happen in sort of regular filmmaking. But when it happens under the sort of this COVID pandemic filmmaking, it's like catastrophic. So it was going through the SNL experience really helped me. It really helps you make decisions quickly and sort of know what is a true catastrophe and what is a fire that we could put out in a second. So yeah, I kind of use all the tricks that I learned at SNL on how to produce a show under duress, I'd say.
Right. Well, you've worked with Michael Che before this, but I'm wondering what he's like to work with, not just as a creative, but as an actor, which we see him basically playing himself, but still
Mm-hmm.
having to show some different emotions that we maybe wouldn't necessarily see on Weekend Update or in a stand-up
Mm-hmm.
setting.
Well, it was great. It was super exciting to, exactly like you said, see him act, see him perform.
Mm.
He's playing himself, but it's still he's being in this insane situations and sort of performing them in a real way. Yeah, at SNL I'd seen him do a couple sketches, so I knew like I was excited to do this because I know he could do it and he's super talented and so yeah, it was for me very exciting to see him away from the update desk and put him in many different situations. And I think he wrote himself into some tricky scenes and narratives that you wouldn't really expect. So yeah, he delivered. I thought he did great.
Yeah, he really goes there for sure. And one of the recurring bits on the show is the talking head, just the unfiltered interviews, the interstitials with Michael, where he's sitting in a room and it seems like he's just kind of talking unscripted, free association almost. I'm curious what those interviews came, how those came in the process and how you set those up.
Those came a little bit later in the process. It was always in discussion, but you know, I think like we were saying, there's Che performing in these narrative spaces, but that is not the Che you are known to or yeah, you are used to. Sorry, and Che also is a stand-up comedian. He's super comfortable in there, so I think he wanted to include a little bit of that and also sort of a direct access to Che, if that makes sense, sort of unfiltered, not in a narrative scenario, but sort of like his point of view, a little more direct. So, it was really interesting challenge to make that in unique in some fashion and not just like a comedian on stage setting up jokes, because we've seen that before.
Right. Well, there's also an interesting structure to this where it's not like an SNL that has a sketch and then another sketch and then another sketch, and they're not really related. They all have this central theme to them, and you keep going back to them as these recurring bits throughout the episode. So you're really telling a story through these individual sketches. I'm not sure if you made that decision or if it was Michael or someone else, but how did you arrive at that as what you wanted for the structure of the show?
I think in the writing there was always a structure, or at least a theme for each episode, and there was always the idea of like something that included Che and that using that as like sort of a springboard to other ideas and other sketches. So yeah, that was there in the writing, and then as we went, we sort of started exploring it, and then with the sort of the talking head moments too, Che sort of kept exploring the theme, and then visually we added to that by like giving each episode a color, so it's sort of all these ideas hopefully visually connect with the audience. It sort of helps you guide you through these many sort of sketches that are sort of jumping off of the narrative, but to sort of settle you in visually at least.
Yeah. Well, can you talk specifically about some of those more visual elements in these individual episodes?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, every episode had a color. Like episode 2 is red. It's almost too easy. It deals with relationship, but it really made sense, and we found this amazing location, and so it was almost like, I guess we're going there, red, but let's do it. But it was super exciting to figure that out, and it really made us approach sketch comedy in a way too that it could be sort of artistically interesting. And like, for example, in episode 3, which is maybe the darker episode, someone gets shot, and it's a tricky episode because you want it to be funny, but also you want to sort of approach this in a grounded way, and it sort of deals with healthcare. And because it deals with healthcare, we chose the color green because it reminds me of hospitals. But yeah, it ended up giving that episode a really interesting look, which is like Chase sets it up as the special episode, the special dramatic episode.
Yes.
But yeah, it was really sort of cool to figure out. Like, we gave ourselves these limitations of colors of like, well, the vaccine episode is black and white. So when we were scouting, it added another nightmare because we're like, this barbershop's not right because it's too red and we did red already. So it's so yeah, it was just cool to give this, the scripts. Jay did a great job as far as the script and the comedy of it all, and how they unfold. So we would sort of want to match it visually.
Yeah. Well, with Michael Che and with this show, there is a bit of an unfiltered quality to the comedy. And I'm wondering if there was a sketch where you really had to thread the needle of finding the right tone to make sure it landed, it didn't go too far, quote unquote, or if you didn't have any concerns about that.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff that threads the needle, but I don't think we approach it with concern. We sort of just want to do it right and try to be honest, and then just sort of see what works or not. And we have the chance to like edit and sort of shape these things together. So there's things that it's sort of a constant trying out things and experimentation, and it's all based on the sketch. But I think Che wanted to sort of push the comedy and push the sort of, I don't even know I don't want to sound cheesy, but sort of do things that he can't do on SNL and sort of have a little bit of an edge. And I think I don't know. It was the landmines were interesting for me, I guess. It was a fun challenge, and I think it's exciting to do comedy that will take a chance. And then I think, I think it's sort of finding the right approach at it.
Yeah. There's also a few episodes that actually have some other SNL cast members on them. Colin Jost, Heidi Gardner, Cecily Strong, people you've worked with on the show. What were those particular sketches like to shoot? What was that atmosphere on set?
Honestly, that was awesome because it was just seeing friends that I hadn't seen in so long, and then also like you couldn't see anyone at that point. So it was nice to just see Heidi, for example, and like you can't see anyone, but like, hey, we're working together, so we can hang out for a second. So it was wonderful. It was great to see them. And they're such pros, and we'd worked together for a bunch of years, so there's a shorthand, and they're super reliable, and also like it was cool to work with other SNL legends that I hadn't worked before, like Ellen and Colin Quinn. So that was exciting.
Yeah. Well, with the Emmys, I believe the process is that once you're nominated, you submit one episode to represent your work. So in the event that day Michael Che is nominated, did you have an episode in mind that you feel was just the highlight of the season, maybe for your contributions in particular?
I think I submitted episode 3. I really liked how that came together, and so all the choices were really interesting, and what it talks about, and the fact that this man wants to take a lift instead of an ambulance. It's that one, and also how he describes sort of the production challenges, like building a subway. So it's like all these sort of elements kind of worked in that one, and but there's a lot of stuff that I'm really proud of, and like episode 2 is I'm super proud of. And yeah, I mean, I think I'm very proud of the work that we all did, cast and crew, in the middle of a pandemic.
Sure. Yeah. Well, speaking of Emmys, I wanted to actually flashback to your Emmy win. I was looking back, and here at Gold Derby, we spoke to you about a month before your Emmy win for your short form series, which was creating Saturday Night Live. Can you take us back to that moment? That was your third year in a row being nominated and, finally getting that trophy.
Well, surreal is one of the words that comes to mind right away. Yeah, I mean, I honestly felt like it was the third year, and it's very exciting to be nominated, and it's a really fun night, and you get to dress up. So part of me was like, just awesome to be nominated and awesome to be invited to this very cool event, and it's amazing. But I don't know, that night I felt a little different. I was like, maybe I should have a speech. So
Good
like,
instinct.
I don't know. I felt like maybe it's because it was the third time. I was like, maybe the third time's a charm. Who knows? If it had been the seventh time, I would have felt differently. But yeah, I don't know. I just remember wanting, because it's a long night, I remember wanting this to happen earlier. And I got my wish. I think it wasn't that long into the night. So that it was almost like, it was amazing to win, but it's also a relief to not have to sit there in agony and anxiousness. But yeah, it was incredibly surreal to talk to you guys, and then, a month later, get an amazing award.
Yeah. Well, before I let you go, you also have an interesting project coming up that you directed a few episodes of, which is Kevin Can Go F Himself. Great title. The new Annie Murphy show on AMC. Lots of hype for that show. I'm sure you can't say too much about some of the details, but that's a show that's playing with different formats like multicam and single cam. What are you looking forward to audiences getting to see with that show?
Oh my God. So many things. I mean, I think Valerie Armstrong, the creator of the show, has this really amazing idea and world and just way to tell the story that I'm really excited for people to see it and just see Allison's journey. Allison is the character that Annie Murphy plays. Yeah, I'm just excited. I'm really excited for people to see it, because it's a unique idea, and like, I always think about my sister. I was having a hard time explaining what the show, like how it unfolded, and she was like, sure, I get it. And then saw the trailer, and she's like, oh, now I get it. So I'm really excited for people to sort of see what we've done there, and I think Annie Murphy really kills it. And yeah, I think it's a unique look at sort of sitcoms and how we've sort of grown used to some of the characters and the jokes and the narratives, and sort of putting a spin on that. There's so much. I'm just excited for people to see the show and sort of talk about it. It was my second pandemic show that I did. Yeah, I actually shot that before Michael J's show. So it was the first time going to set with like, oh my God, we're doing something in the pandemic and getting tested and all that. But it also felt like very, we were like 30 minutes out of Boston. So it kind of felt like, we were just there doing that thing, and sort of felt like a communal, awesome thing.
Very, very much looking forward to it. And for those of you watching, subscribe for more interviews and head to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions. Oz, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much.